Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday, July 27th. It has been a weekend filled with NFL news and a weekend filled with Titans news. We had the open stadium or the stadium open practice yesterday for you guys to hang out to go see Cam Ward in person for the first time, many of you. And it was quite an experience to see the way that people gravitated towards the number one overall pick at quarterback. And certainly there were some moments where it looks like they were going to put on a bit of a show for you. Now, I think on the whole, the defense probably had the better day, but that's not something that we have to get too bogged down in, because something that I want to talk about with practice highlights tonight is the idea of how much value is there actually in what you see on social media after practice versus what the coaching staff is trying to accomplish. So we're going to get into that. Obviously, we'll talk about Treylon Burks, because that was, while Cam was the most interesting thing of the weekend, you probably have Treylon Burks as the biggest news item coming out of the weekend and the corresponding transactions. With that, Titans Kyle says it's so early, but yeah, I know, and I appreciate you guys working with my schedule. We have a Titans media dinner tonight with some folks, so I had to make some adjustments, and I do appreciate y'all jumping on if you're able to, and I appreciate those of you who will watch it after the fact. But I figured, because a lot of times, guys, when I have schedule conflicts, just quickly before we talk about the actual football, we'll record shows, and I just don't think, prime time is supposed to be live. And so I think, and you guys can tell me if you'd rather have it recorded at 7 o'clock. If I have a schedule conflict like I do tonight, then we can do that. If you'd rather just have it at 7, but if you'd rather do it live with me at an earlier time, if I need to, it's never going to be later. I think that we should probably do it together live. I do think that there's a bit more value there, because I like to see your guys' feedback. I know y'all would rather have a more engaging show that way. So y'all make the decision in the comment section, and we can we'll go through those after the fact and see what the majority of people want. But like I said, I do appreciate you working with my schedule tonight. So thank you for doing so, even though we are on a bit early. So with all that said, a lot of different things coming out of the stadium practice, and of course the Treylon Burks news item being the most important thing. And with that, we will probably not do Sunday Fun Day. We'll talk about Treylon and we'll talk about Cam at this point. Okay, I don't think I've seen a single person go with the recorded prime time. So we'll just, it won't happen very often. Obviously this year, because there's some West Coast games. There's Arizona, there's Vegas. Is there another one that I'm missing? Denver. Denver is Mountain Time, so not Pacific Coast time. But still, there's going to be some adjustments that we'll make throughout the course of the season, depending on where I am or what needs to be done. Tonight just happens to be a Titans media dinner that I was not going to, try and have everybody else move just for my sake. So I do appreciate that, and I'm sure the rest of us appreciate hanging out together. So hopefully, if you got a chance to attend the open stadium practice, you liked what you saw, but I want to talk about the actual value in what it is that you do get to see when you do go to practice or when you see practice highlights. There's a couple of different things there that I think are worth talking about, whether or not, it doesn't have to change your opinion on the value that you assign to certain things that you see on social media after the fact, but I do think it's a conversation worth diving into a little bit further. So anyway, I'm going to quit rambling. We'll go ahead and get this thing started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday evening. I'm your host, Buck Rising. If you're new to the show, we're happy to have you. Thanks for stopping by. But for the majority of you, you know that I'm proud as always to be presented to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Online at tworiversford.com. Quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service is what they give you at Two Rivers Ford. TrueMav Fitness, where you go for your first workout free and for the best workout in Middle Tennessee. No pun intended there. TrueMavFitness.com for more details. They will go above and beyond to make sure that you can accomplish your fitness goals at TrueMavFitness.com. So there is, let's start with Cam, because I think the majority of you are, you're over the Treylon Burks discussion, even though Treylon Burks is the biggest news item to come out of the Titans weekend. He's obviously going to be placed on injured reserve for a period of time. and I'll explain to you why he can't be on the physically unable to perform list as opposed to IR. Bert and I were looking up the details on that before the show started tonight. So we do have a little bit of context there about the nature of the transaction and why one will have to be done as opposed to the other. But let's start with Cam. So Titans fans get the first opportunity, or the majority of you get the first opportunity to see Cam Ward at practice if you got the chance to attend the stadium practice, and I know a handful of you did. And it was there's about, I think they had it at about 7,000 tickets that they ended up handing out or giving out for this, and it was a free event. Ward had a really nice 7-on-7 period, which was, more a jog through pace than anything else. They kept it pretty light on the practice field, just given the heat at Nissan Stadium in the middle of the day in July. They had some high intensity team drills, but for the most part, they took it easy, or took it easier than going full speed the entirety of it, because they were out there. I mean, we got started at 11 o'clock. I think they wrapped up a little before, maybe a little before 2 o'clock. I think 1:45-ish is when they finally wrapped it up, which is longer than average. And with fans in attendance, they I think it was better to give you guys more when you go out there in the heat and brave the conditions and the elements of Nissan Stadium in the middle of July, when it's basically going to feel like that until midway through October. I think they were right to give you guys a little extra as opposed to cutting it short. And, for those of you who took the time to get down there. And like I said, it's a tenth of the stadium, if that was full. But that's, it's an open practice in the middle of July in the heat. I get why that was not the most attended thing. Now, Ward, 7-on-7, got people into it, completed his first 7 passes of practice. He had a nice deep ball to Calvin Ridley on the first play of the 7-on-7 period, which was a good way to get people into it. And they had a huge emphasis on third down in particular. Ended up 7 of 8 in the 7-on-7 period. He was 7 of 13 in the team period. So a few more struggles and some plays that I would have considered sacks as opposed to completions, which would also include a touchdown pass that he threw to Calvin Ridley. The play would have been dead because Draymond Jones got him first, and then Jeff Simmons would have got him second. But obviously, they're not taking Cam Ward down. And I was a little snarky about it on Twitter. And I said, there's people cheering in the stadium for a pass that would have been a sack in a normal circumstance. But whatever. Twitter fun police, you don't have to give a shit about whether or not it would have been a sack. You're just there for the show. And for the most part, that's what Cam Ward and the Titans gave you. It was a situation where the Titans are cognizant of the fact that the vast majority of people are out there to see Cam Ward, and that Cam Ward's success is obviously going to get more people into it. Cam Ward's burner on YouTube says, I wanted to go see my new seats in section 218, but they wouldn't let me go upstairs. So like new seats in the old stadium? I don't know what the logistics were of where people were allowed to go versus if I assume they only had the lower bowl open. There's not worth, opening up the rest of the stadium to for the practice day, just for an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. Cordy Jackson points out that there was a really nice throw to Tyler Lockett later in the practice that Cam Ward had some nice passes on the day, even though he was about 50% or completing 50% of his passes in the team drills. He was, I thought he showed you enough if you haven't gotten to see him. And obviously I've seen a great deal more of him at this point in practice than you guys will have, other than social media highlights. He ended up 14 of 21, picked off once, made a lot of plays that people seem to be into. And I thought the energy was good. I thought the energy was really good, especially, by the time the practice wrapped up and the autograph session started, and Cam Ward, just people wanting to see him and be near him and appreciate what they think they might have, which at this point is way too early to be determined, but it's just enough to get people going. So I thought, for what it was, I thought they put on a pretty decent show, and I thought that he showed you all the different things. There's some highs and there's some lows there. He wasn't perfect. He missed a couple of throws. Like I said, he threw an interception in that practice. So there were some different things for you to look at. And the emphasis of that at your Two Rivers Forte, as I ramble on and on, in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, if you would like to participate there. How much stock I guess, is the way to ask it. How much stock do you put in practice highlights? Let me know. A lot, a little, none at all. Practice highlights. How much stock do you put in? And specifically, we'll make it Cam Ward Stadium practice, just for your guys' edification. How much stock do you put in Cam Ward Stadium practice? If you went, if you saw it after the fact, if you saw some of the stuff that they were showing on NFL Network, how much actual value, how much stock do you put in to the day that he had on Saturday? Because I think there's some important context there. It's a Two Rivers Ford Take. It's presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, online at tworiversford.com. Quality, American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service. Always, they go above and beyond to make sure that you get a fun car buying process, fun, fast, and convenient car buying process that gets you the vehicle that makes the most sense for your family's budget and for your needs. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Curator says, Buck hates when Titans fans are excited, LOL, like he wasn't excited the whole draft period. No, I hate the draft period, especially because we knew since February that they were going to draft Cam Ward. So no, I can't stand the time that it takes to get us from the combine to the draft and then everything that comes after the draft to actual football, because none of this shit really matters until they play football games. That's what I hate. I hate the time that we have to spend. Now, obviously, we can't play football all year round, and it can't be every month, can't have something super meaningful, or every week can't have something super meaningful. The NFL does a good enough job spreading us out enough to where there's always at least football largely in the news cycle, except for those 6 weeks that go by. But I hate when Titans fans get excited. Yeah, I don't hate it. I just want to make sure that I want to make sure that it's appropriate, and you guys are welcome to get excited about whatever you want to get excited about. I'm not a Titans fan. I'm not even really I wouldn't say that I'm not an NFL fan. I like NFL football, but that's not where my sports fandom comes from. Football is fun. I enjoy football for work. I have the greatest job in the world that way, but football is not my favorite sport that way. So I'm not going to tell you how to be a football fan. You be whatever kind of football fan you want to. But if you're asking me for context, and if you're asking me how I think about these things, then I'm going to give you a different perspective, because I just want to make sure, okay, was that actually something that we should get excited about? Or when you watch these things, do you have the full context of what the coaching staff is asking for in a particular segment of practice here, right? Because I was talking to somebody on the coaching staff on the field before practice started that day, and they were, it was a little tongue in cheek, it was a little bit of a joke, but what this coach said was, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but essentially, man, I wish we'd take these third down situational things out on days that we have fans, because it's not fans are going to think one thing when we're actually we're trying to make life more difficult on them. We're trying to get them. I mean, obviously, they're trying to give them the tools and information to avoid mistakes, but it is okay. And in fact, it's almost invited in the early going, because it's the first week of practice. They're kind of looking for them to make mistakes so that they can make the necessary corrections early on and iron out as much as humanly possible by the time we get to the regular season. So mistakes are largely, it's not a blanket statement. Not every mistake is a good mistake, but mistakes are largely welcome at this time of year. And when fans see struggles or interceptions or things like that, they think, is Cam Ward not really what I think he is? Or does that corner that just got beat, does he suck based on whatever you were watching on a particular practice drill, or what, the necessary context to understand, okay, what am I seeing versus what are they actually trying to accomplish? Because none of us, unless we're in the meeting rooms or on the coaching staff, really understand all the different levels of the responsibilities or the things that they're trying to accomplish on any given day. And that's okay. We don't have to have the full context. It's okay to be able to react and talk about these things without getting too far ahead of ourselves. But some of the highlights, and fans in the stands, they're tweeting highlights and all these different things, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, But I don't want people to say, okay, well, Cam Ward was 14 of 21 or whatever in team, and I thought he'd be a little better, and he made some throws that would have you, being like, oh shit, don't make that throw. And then he, completes a pass and he's throwing into double coverage, but he's trusting his receiver and he's got balls. He's going to, he's going to push some things, and you almost want him to push the limits. I mean, you do want him to push the limits more now so that he can figure out, okay, what is within my realm of possibility here. Obviously, I'm going to go out of my way to try and make plays when there are plays there to be made, like not force the issue, but what is a reasonable level of risk based on the significance of whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish that day. Obviously, you're going to take more chances in a week 1 training camp practice than you would week 1 of the regular season against the Denver Broncos. So I think, like I said, you react however you want to react. If you want context from me, I'm going to try to provide you as much context as humanly possible. You could also not give a shit about the context that I'm there to provide. Just say, shut up. Don't tell me what I don't want context. I just want to be excited, or I want to be pissed, or I want to react. As is your right as a fan. So, because the same person adds, when Buck is genuinely excited about this team, we have a real chance as a Super Bowl. I mean, they're Titans, the most excited I was ever for. The most excited I ever was for a Titans team because of the things that I thought they would be able to go on to accomplish was 2021. And, famously, like, you got the number 1 overall seed, and it was a tough road to get there, and everybody was healthy by that playoff game, but we don't have to relitigate the playoff game. So anyway, we'll keep it moving. Happier times, right? What level of stock, or how much stock do you put in Cam Ward's stadium practice? A lot, a little, not at all, or none at all? A little, right? There's always a little that you would put in there, but I try not to overreact or knee jerk on too much of this stuff here, because I just think there's so many things that we don't know that they do, and how they evaluate is going to be different from how we see things on social media, or even just standing there on the sidelines like I do at practice, because I still don't have their full script and still don't understand all their different, like, I know that yesterday was a 3rd down situational day. What I don't know is, do Denard Wilson and Brian Callahan have a conversation beforehand, be like, all right, I'm going to throw this, that, and the other at you. You know that I'm going to throw this, that, and the other at you. I'm going to have to work to combat that. But are the coaches communicating that way on the front end? Are the players in on it? Defensively, players know it's a 3rd down situation, so they're going to have more success. They're just going to be able to tee off. And it's going to make life harder on the offense, which is why this coach was sitting there hemming and hawing and be like, man, I wish fans weren't out here for 3rd down stuff, because they're going to think that we suck. And they still might not, there doesn't mean that they're going to be great at anything. We'll see by the time we get to the regular season, but just the context that we have in our minds right now, we're based on what the untrained eye is able to see. Anyway, this is Cam Ward at Nissan Stadium in the NFL Network's visit with him on Back Together Weekend, I believe is what this is called.
The one thing they said that stood out to me was they can't beat you into the office. What time are you getting in the facility every day, and who have you been bringing with you?
I get there early. I get there about 5:30. Just the process what I need to do to try to get, be able to play my best ball in the upcoming weeks. And then just also get my receivers up there. Ridley, he's always up there. Ellick and Chim, he's always up there. Restrepo's up there. We got so really all the young guys, we really stay up there because, we're behind the 8 ball. We're playing against 7-year, 10-year vets, and we got to be ready to play from day one. So I'm excited, though. That's why we have an emphasis on getting there, learning everything, and, just trying to get better every day.
So that's Cam Ward visiting with former Titans quarterback Matt Castle, who's still living here, and I think doing a podcast. Well, I know doing a podcast with Bobby Bones. And Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, their lead draft analyst. So they had a bunch of people. Ian Rappaport was here taking in Titans practice, and obviously we'll get to Ian Rappaport's information on Treylon Burks a little later on in the show, because Treylon Burks was the biggest news item, like I mentioned, coming out of that. So a lot, a little, none at all, a little context, or a little bit of value in Cam Ward Stadium practice. But do I think he's the greatest quarterback in the history, man, just because he had a cup, because of that Tyler Lockett pass yesterday? No, but I like that he can do that. Anyway, all right, some comments here. Jeffrey Mullen says Ward is the whole reason for optimism. It's the whole reason, not to make this like a Hallmark card, but Cam Ward is the reason for the season, right? He's really the only thing that if I'm a Titans fan, the only thing I care about is seeing, all right, does he have just a couple of moments this year? Does he show sustainable growth and improvement? Is that something that we think he can build upon? What is his ceiling? How much of a ceiling do you assign to him in his rookie year? And do they at least have stuff that can immediately support him as opposed to, are they going to wreck this kid? Jonathan says a little is the correct answer, especially before pads, for sure. Darth Vader on YouTube says, I'm more excited to see how he does in joint practices. And like I said, we're going to be on the road in Tampa. They only have 1 day of joint work against Tampa. He's going to play in the preseason, so obviously I'll be down there to cover the preseason game as well in Atlanta and I guess Tampa and then Atlanta. They're staying on the road for 12 straight days. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do 3 days in Tampa, 3 days, 3 nights in both. And I will come back in between there because I'm not going to stay on the road for 12 days. That's nonsense. I'm sure there's plenty of people, a lot of spouses probably pissed of support staff that work on that football team. Probably a lot of players and coaches' wives pissed about it too. How much do I think he plays in the preseason? I have no idea. I wouldn't answer that question right now. We still have 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Because, I could say, well, I think it's fine to play him for a quarter against Tampa, but if he gets hurt in the joint camp practices, or not hurt, but he strains something, God forbid, like something happens to him and then all of a sudden he doesn't play in the preseason at all, and we're having that kind of a conversation ahead of week 1 at Denver, and we'll get to that week of, and I'm sure Callahan will be asked about that. Maybe he tells you straight up, maybe he kind of plays his cards a little close to the vest. I don't know. I would say anywhere between 25 and 30% of the snaps total in the preseason, I think is fine. I think he should play a little bit in all 3, to be honest with you. But anything more than 30%, if he's not out there, if he's not out there with the starting offense, obviously he shouldn't be out there if the starting offensive line isn't out there. But if Ridley is only going to play X amount of those snaps, yeah, I want Cam Ward to have at least somewhat of a repertoire with the rest of the depth. But I care more about Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley getting reps than I do Cam Ward and Trent Sheffield, right? I don't need to see Cam Ward out there throwing the 4th and 5th string wide receivers. Rashid says, don't book any trips in January, Buck. What do you mean? Because the Titans are going to the postseason? It's July. It's 6 months from now. I mean, if you guys get to the playoffs, that's a huge story. If you guys are even really even if you miss the playoffs and you're sniffing around with the potential to push for a wild card, maybe you don't get it. That's still a big step. You won 3 games last year. You know what I'm saying? I know you want it right now, and maybe you get it. We have no idea the variance here for what can happen. I don't think Jaden Daniels is going to happen again, 1 season removed from seeing, I would argue, the best season I've seen from a rookie quarterback, at least since I've started watching professional football 30 plus years. But yeah, I mean, it could be tough this year and he struggle and this still not be a very good team. And that's reflected, but you come away feeling all right, just need a few more things here and there, and they can get back to a spot. As long as he's meaningfully competitive this year, I don't care. I just want this season to be focused on, all right, let's not screw Cam Ward up. And then however long it takes you to get to the point where you can start being talked about regularly as somebody who should be competing for a postseason spot, way too early. Rashid Jenkins says anything is possible in the AFC South. Yeah, but by that logic, it's also possible that Trevor Lawrence becomes the best quarterback in the division because he should be, right? So, I mean, that would completely upend the math. If the Jags all of a sudden have a quarterback that you're scared of or that you fear, because Trevor Lawrence, if you had the opportunity to draft all 4 of them again in the same draft class, Lawrence, Stroud, Ward, and Richardson, I mean, Ward might be 4th in that situation. Now, obviously, you're armed with the knowledge of Richardson and what he has or has not yet turned into he's going into year 3. But the upside of Richardson, an NFL team took him 4th overall, right? In a year where he had 13 career starts in college. That's pretty crazy to think about. Now, maybe you flip-flop those, but still, Lawrence should be, if he ever realizes anywhere close to his potential, he should be the best quarterback in the division. That Stroud is just by nature of the fact that the other 3 teams have had shitty quarterback situations. So we'll see. To your point, anything is possible, and this is a bad division, but the division gets a lot more complicated if 1, Richardson figures it out, 2, if Stroud figures it out, and 3, or rather Lawrence. And 3, if Stroud continues to struggle, because it's not like that. I mean, the Texans should be favored to win the division. They are favored to win the division, but I mean, their offensive line situation is the whole reason why it looked so bad last year. And they still won 10 games, and CJ Stroud is good enough that he can cover up some of that. But, like, if they continue to take a step back in front of him, of course, that quarterback situation. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys how hard it is to figure it out. Without an offensive line situation that you can trust. You're still chasing that, and it's been 5 years since that has happened. Does Ward have a better chance of having a better rookie season than Lawrence? I don't. I would have to go back and look at Trevor Lawrence's rookie season. I mean, probably because he doesn't have Urban Meyer, right? The whole thing about Lawrence's season that made it such a hellscape was the fact that Urban Meyer was his coach his rookie year. So, Brian Callahan, I have no idea if he's a good coach or if he's going to be a good head coach he's a good football coach. I don't know if he's going to be a good head coach, right? But I'm pretty sure I can say with complete confidence that Callahan would never have the issues that Urban Meyer did in that season. What a mess. Only sports analysts still want Lawrence to figure it out. They don't want to take L's on their Lawrence takes. Also because I want more, for me, yeah, hell yeah, I want Trevor Lawrence to hit. I want Richardson to hit. I want Cam Ward to hit. I wanted Levis to hit because I want better quarterbacks. I want better football. I want more compelling divisional games. I want all 4 of them to be good. I want to watch the best football possible. And the fact that only one of them looks like they've panned out while the other one is making $55 million a year without really knowing for sure if he's a good quarterback and having some doubts about that. Yeah, I want all 4 of them to succeed. I want all 4 of them to be as great as humanly possible because I want to watch great football. And obviously, it's been a while since the division has had great football in that situation. Josh says, "Were you thinking Cam Ward can get the job done, helping us win 3 or more? Win then loss, but I hope he win the Rookie of the Year in 2025 because I think the AFC South division is the worst." Ashton, just to take because I'm not really sure what you're asking me there in the first part of your question, Joshua. That may be a me issue. I don't know. My brain's not really working or processing what it is that you're trying to ask me, other than that you're hopeful about Cam Ward. Ashton Genty's favored to win the Rookie of the Year. Vegas is an interesting story this year. Chip Kelly's going to run the shit out of the football, So Cam Ward is a quarterback. I'm surprised, frankly, that he's not favored, at least in the betting markets, that Ashton Genty would be. But if you wanted to put a couple extra dollars because Cam Ward's not the outright favorite, that's probably not a bad bet. He's a quarterback as long as he's healthy. If him and Genty play the same amount of games and they're both reasonably good or look like they could be good in the future, then I would think that distinction is going to go for a quarterback more than it would a running back. But at least right now, Vegas is saying that Ashton Genty is the favorite. Quickly on Treylon Burks, and then we'll wrap up tonight because I don't want to see. I don't really want to belabor the point, and it just ends up just kind of sound like we're shitting on Treylon Burks, who's so unlucky. Let me ask you the question, and then we'll move on. I'll tell you about TrueMav, and then we'll wrap up with some Treylon Burks stuff here. Should Treylon Burks return from injury this season? He's got a broken collarbone or fractured collarbone, and that's not a season-ending injury. But I think it's a fair question to ask you guys. Should Treylon Burks return from this injury when he is able? Because he will be able to return at some point. But the question is, should he? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together. Right after I remind you that TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch is your place to go for the best workout in Middle Tennessee. No workout ever recycled or repeated. TrueMav Fitness is there to help you to go above and beyond to make sure that you accomplish your fitness goals without overextending you, without putting you in a compromising position, to make sure that you can accomplish the fitness goals that you set out to achieve and do it in a reasonable manner. TrueMavFitness.com, incredibly affordable. Like I said, that first workout is free. Group classes, personal training, sign up for a membership. You can work out in their facility, conveniently located in downtown Nashville, as you please. TrueMavFitness.com for more details. All right. So, should Treylon Burks return from injury? because he fractured his collarbone. I was standing on the sideline that it happened. I know some people maybe didn't have the best vantage point, so they called it. Some people on social media were calling it a catch that he made. He didn't come down with that ball. Didn't come down with that ball in bounds. He may have come down with the ball, but it would not have been a completion. And the larger point with that is, damn, I mean, the guy, he can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy, and that's not his fault. Some of it, my issue among many, and there have been many issues with Treylon Burks, but one of the biggest issues that I take with Treylon Burks is the fact that this would have been his fourth season and will be. I mean, it's not like he's dead or anything like that, God forbid. But he's in his fourth season and he still doesn't fall in a way that would protect him. Like he goes up in the air to bring down a contested catch. There are a few people who consistently crash down harder to earth than Treylon Burks does when he goes up for a ball. And it wears on him. He's not graceful in the way that he protects himself or doesn't protect himself as he's going to the ground. And a lot of times he's not even coming up with these catches to begin with. So he fractures his collarbone on Saturday or yesterday. And I don't know, 3.5, 4 months at the most. So that would still put us in the middle of this football season or towards the back half of this football season. Should he return? He can return, but should he return? I mean, for his sake, I don't know that it just doesn't make sense to just shut him down. I mean, this avoids him from potentially being cut because now they can just put him on injured reserve. He can't go on PUP, can't go on physically unable to perform because the rules state, and I'll read directly from the NFL roster designation handbook here, for players with PUP, you cannot go on the PUP list. There's reserve and there's active. Players on the PUP list can participate in all team activities except practice. They can be activated at any point during camp once they are medically cleared. A player cannot be placed on the PUP list after they have practiced or played in a preseason game. Obviously, this is the first week of practice, but because Treylon Burks practiced all 3 days, and had he only practiced once and then gotten hurt, he would then be and is ineligible to go on physically unable to perform. So now Treylon Burks becomes an injured reserve candidate. And I was telling Robert, I mean, the irony of Treylon Burks and Will Levis already being on injured reserve. I mean, Treylon isn't yet, but he will be. They can put him on IR before the start of the regular season, and he can miss the entire season, or they could designate him to return when the roster is trimmed down because they would have to use a roster spot, a 53-man roster spot, for that transaction to be able to take place. So they would have to designate him to return before the roster is officially cut down or as the roster is being cut down. Now, that only matters because there are rules about you can bring up to 8 players back from IR during the regular season, and this obviously wouldn't be during the regular season. So Will Levis is not coming back. He's not going to be designated to return. Treylon Burks could come back. They could designate him to return because of the timeline of the injury, or they could shut it down and say, you know what, we can just move on from this and give him time to get right and prepare for his next opportunity because clearly he's not going to be back next year. It's just, I mean, does he actually add any value to the team in bringing him back? I don't think the answer to that question is yes. I do hate it for him, and they shouldn't do it unless like he obviously has to be a part of this conversation here because he is technically in. I mean, he's not technically. He is in a contract year. This is a contract year for Treylon Burks. So if Treylon says, hey man, I really, I want to try and make whatever money I can make, even if I come back and there's a month left in the season. Like, if we're not pushing for a playoff spot here, can you give me a couple of reps? Can I get a couple of opportunities here? I mean, obviously you have to earn it, but can you not just shelf me because I want to try and make some money? That's a fair argument. That Now, you don't have to agree with that argument, but if you're Treylon Burks, like, you get why that would be the position that he would take. And if he doesn't want to take that, then that's also telling, right? Because if he's saying, yeah, just shut it down. I don't know. You want him to want to compete. And I don't think that he doesn't want to compete. I don't know. The injury situation has completely muddled all things Treylon Burks. I mean, it's a mess. I hate it for him. I really do. I genuinely feel bad for the guy. And I know that you wanted AJ Brown, or you wanted him to be good after AJ Brown, and now we can officially put it to bed, right? That's it's not the worst trade in NFL history, but it's up there. It's really bad. For his sake, though, I almost think about it like Levis, like, just let him get away. Let him take some time away. Let him get away from media scrutiny. Let him get away from all of these things. Have a hard reset. Come back and try and get another opportunity with another team after this team lets him walk. Because they won't have to cut him. Now they don't have to cut him. Now they don't have to eat $4 million to cut him. Now they can find a more cost-effective. They can save some money because he's on injured reserve without outright eating $4 million. Because I do think they could have cut it. Like, they cut Caleb Farley last year, and I know their situations aren't completely the same, but I mean, they ate money to cut Farley. Burks has been a big enough issue that you could see a world in which they did cut Treylon Burks, even if it doesn't make sense to eat $4 million. All right. That's going to do it for us tonight. No Sunday Fun Day. I figure we spend more time on Treylon Burks than anything else. Good show. Good to be back in the swing of things. Radio show tomorrow. We are not at camp. We will be at camp Tuesday and Wednesday, full pads for the first time in training camp. So that's when we start to actually see a level of competitiveness. It starts to look like actual football, right? And we can start to learn more about the offensive line, the defensive line, the linebackers, the wide receivers. Brian Callahan spent a lot of time talking about how necessary pads are for these rookie wide receivers. Like the video on the way out the door. I appreciate Rashid reminding me to remind you to do that. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube, it always helps if you guys are doing that after the fact. And again, I do appreciate y'all working with my schedule tonight. We had a conflict that I couldn't get out of, which is why I am dressed for an evening as opposed to the primetime show. But if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for liking the video as well. And we will do primetime tomorrow. We will have the radio show tomorrow from 10 to 1, and we look forward to you guys hanging out there with us. See you then.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville! Go home!